Hi, this is Kunal from Loop 91. Today we would be talking about saving user preferences. And before we get to a technical side, let us start with the user story. The requirement, the user story is such: as a user, I want to store my preferred office and all the dashboard, all my UX across ServiceNow should reflect that. For example, what you see on the screen is a simple widget. I choose my location and that location should be stored. So if I were to refresh this page, it should reflect that value. Doesn't matter how many times I refresh the page, I log out or log in again. Now there could be multiple ways to implement this, and I want you to decide within yourself what would you do in this scenario, right? And keep that thought to yourself. I'll show you some more example. If you go to ServiceNow portal and click on user profile, it opens this page. On this page, you would see that you are able to change the theme of your service portal. For example, I want to see Coral Dark. I click on this, refresh the page. Now the page theme has changed. Now I have a dark mode enabled for me. I can also change my time zone. I can also change the accessibility features. Now this is again something which is unique to each user, right? So where would you save this? Now, after working so many years in ServiceNow, I realize that some common patterns that appear from especially juniors or developers who haven't had that much experience in ServiceNow, how would they do it? The first option would come, let us create a new custom table. Let's create a table just to store user preferences. Maybe call it u_user_preferences, and let's create new record for each person. But that would add to your maintenance. Now you are responsible for ACLs. You need to make sure that someone else cannot change my preferences. Okay, what about creating a new field on sys user table? Yes, you could do that. But again, the same trap. Now you are maintaining this. Let's create a new sys property for each person. No, don't do that. Why? Because you could have 3,000 users and you could have 30 preferences. That would make 90,000 records on sys properties. Please don't do that. What about storing these preferences on the browser? Browsers have amazing capability of storing unlimited amount of data nowadays, so you could save it. But when you do this, if I were to change my browser, my preferences are lost. All the example that we saw earlier may be user profile or may be anything else. All those things are stored within database. Where are they stored? They're stored in a special table that comes with ServiceNow out of box, and it is literally called user preferences. The name of the table is sys user preference. This table stores all the preferences for each user in a different record. For example, what we see on the screen is user.default_location. This is a record that was created when we change the value here. For example, if I were to change it now again, let's change it to something different and go back to the list view, it would change. And when I changed my theme, I clicked here. If I go back to the list view and reload this page, it created a new record that is SP theme variant mapping. So now ServiceNow provides you a simple way to handle these things. Now that we understand where these are stored, let us understand how does this work. Let's open a background script and we will try to find sys property within this table. The API is very simple, gs.getUser.getPreference, when you want to get the preference, not the property. So if I do run this, it will say this property does not exist. So the answer is null. Let's save this property once. How we save it? We save it very similarly, gs.getUser.savePreference. Remember, it is get and save. ServiceNow for some reason thought save should be opposite of get, which I personally think it should have been set preference. But that's for another day. So if I were to save this and go and look at the user preference table, there is a property, a totally new preference name, and the value is set to a string value. All preferences are stored in string. Now, if I were to run the script again, it will get it. And another thing to note is, when you overwrite a user preference, it does not update the record. It would delete the old record and create a new record in its place. So never reference the user reference table, just use the out-of-box API for this. Now the third and rarely used option is how do you delete a user preference. So if you want to delete the user preference, you simply go and save it with value of null. If I were to save this, that record has been deleted, and if I were to go and select this, that record just disappeared. So now you know how to use ServiceNow API to set user preferences. Now the example I showed were very simple, but remember, the good UX is not about how pretty it looks. The good UX is about how easy it is for end user to use your software. If I can store the theme of my page for the next time when user logs in, that is a positive thing. I hope you learned something today. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.